Today we're going to be looking at a first lesson on how to begin to design a shape profile for a shell CO2 car. So far all we've done is look at wheel design style, we've looked at rail, we've looked at reveal, we've looked at shell. This example here is a shell car, and this example uses a 12-inch long blank, which is the maximum that you can use. So I'm going to begin by doing several offsets just to give me some positions I can use to start designing. Now these offsets I'm doing are going to be temporary. I'm coming up with some values here on my own, and you can do the same for your drawing as well. Okay, so the first tool I'm going to use is called Spline. Under Draw, you can find it right here. Spline Fit draws a spline with fit points. Now make sure ortho is turned off before you start using this. And also it's a good idea to turn a few snaps off. So if you go into your object snap settings by right-clicking, left-click snap setting, I would turn off midpoint and perpendicular snap because they might give you some problems while you're doing this. Hit OK. Go to Draw, pick Spline Fit. And I'm going to begin here. And I just want to create a little cutaway on a curved radius. So again, there's no specific place to pick. I'm going to start at this endpoint for obvious reasons, where my offset is. And I'm going to come up and I'm going to click here, here, and I'm just going to click outside the blank here. Enter. And I'm going to trim off this piece right here. Okay, this line is going to erase. And if I select this, these are the points where I selected. So what I can do is I can edit this by actually moving these points. The more times I click when I'm creating a spline, the more editable points I will have, and I can actually manipulate this. I'm not going to manipulate this one because I'm pretty happy with how it looks. So I'm just going to hit enter and actually erase. I'm going to backspace that, and I'm going to leave this where it is. Sometimes I accidentally erase these things by hitting enter, and it's because I can't hit my escape key, because if I hit my escape key, I'm going to stop recording. So I have to be careful how I'm doing things here when I'm recording video. So I'm going to go up here. I'm going to start by actually creating a profile to be cut out for aerodynamics. So I'm going to be clicking less on this one. I'm going to be going and I'm going to be hitting Spline Fit again. I'm going to start at this endpoint, and I'm going to come up probably to about here, click here, here again, and then when I get to the endpoint, I can hit enter and end the command. Now, we're just going to be manipulating this just a touch, just by hitting that little grip on the end. I'm able to fix my endpoint and clean it up. All right, so I have something here that kind of is a little bit aerodynamic. I could actually edit this. I could bring this down a bit if I wanted to, right? All my points that I select can be edited. All right, so that looks a little better. A little more sleeker here, less wind resistance. The last what I'm going to do is I'm going to cut away a little section between these two lines here. So that's why I offset these two lines, so I have something, basically, close enough to being in the middle between the two shell wheels. So again, we're going to be using a spline fit. We're going to start at this endpoint. I got to think about where I'm going to click. I don't want the endpoint. So if you see that endpoint show up, don't click because it's going to want to snap to that center line endpoint on the left. So if that ever comes up for you, that's what you do. I'm just going to click here. I'm going to come around to here. And then back there. Okay. So I want to try to get this a little more symmetrical. So I'm going to fix that one. And again, this just has to do with editing some of these points. We have something that looks fairly decent now, right? Just a little bit of work manipulating those points, and now I've got something here that I'm happy with. Okay, so what I can do is take these lines here and erase them. And I'm also going to be erasing this line here because I'm cutting all this part off. This line is going to go as well. And I'm going to be trimming this. And I'm also going to be trimming, whoops. Okay. So I have to bring this down a touch. And I'm just going to be trimming the rest here. Okay. All right. And there I've got it. Okay, so this is just one concept for a design. It looks fairly nice. It's got some nice curves and arcs to it. And when you're working on the top view, anything hidden from your view, looking down from the top, has to be projected above. So when I look down on the top view, I'm not going to be able to see this arced cutaway at the back. So what I'm going to do is draw a line from this endpoint and bring it up. I'm going to turn ortho on, and I'll turn on my perpendicular snap again, and I'll bring it up to here and trim. This line is going to become a hidden line because I have to show on my top view where this ends. That's the only perspective I can gain from looking at this from the top. On a technical drawing is where it's going to begin, which is this line, and where it ends here. I have to do the same thing here. and here. Trim, trim, take this line, and turn them into hidden lines. Like that. Now, things like curves and arcs don't project up and down between the two views. So because all of these are curves and arcs, the only thing I can project is where they begin and where they end, right? So this hidden line is where this curved arc begins. This one represents where it ends, and so on with this one here. And because the main body is curved and arced all along its length, there's nothing to project up to the top view to show where that starts and ends, because this object line represents where it starts, and this object line represents where it ends. Okay, so moving on with the top view now. Now I've got a center line that runs through the entire length of the CO2 car, meaning I'm only going to be drawing on 1/2 of this. Meaning when I've got 1/2 designed, it makes perfect sense to use the mirror command to mirror the other half into place, because that's what the center line represents. It represents symmetry. All cars are symmetrical from the length of their center line, on either side of the length of their center line. So I don't need to use a spline all the time. So I'm going to use offset. I'm going to create an offset to know where I'm going to end a feature. And what I'm going to do is just draw a line from this endpoint to this intersection. And I've got a pointed tip, right? I don't need to do it on this side because I'm just going to mirror it later. So I'm going to erase that line. And actually, I've decided I'm going to bring that line back, and I'm going to offset from there another value. And later these lines will be erased. That's right in line with that, so I don't like 1 5/8. I'm going to try 1 3/4. Okay. And I'm going to do another one here. Offsets are really helpful, so you can really see where these things are going to be starting and ending. Again, I don't want this to go inside my shell wheel, so I'm going to reduce this. Let's see what 4 looks like. Alright, that's better. And then I'll do one more here. I'll go from the back this time, and I'll go 1 3/4. And that's not going to interfere with my shelled wheel either. Alright. So I'm going to move to the back here. I'm going to go back into my snap settings and turn off perpendicular in case I get some weird snaps happening. Go into draw, pick the spline fit, snap to this endpoint, and turn ortho off because ortho will prevent you from actually doing splines. Okay. Just going to fix that up a bit. Okay. So again, we're just going to manipulate this a tiny bit just to make it look a little more even. And to me, that looks pretty good. Okay. So I'm going to be getting rid of that line there. Erase. And I'm going to create another one of these lines here between these two object lines. So remember, the more times you click, the more times you have something that you can edit later. To end the command, just hit enter. You may have to just bring this in a bit, like that. Okay, so let's take a look at this. Takes a bit of practice to maneuver these things a bit. But you know what they say, practice makes perfect. This one's stubborn. Okay. That's looking better. That is just about what I want. Yes. Okay. That looks good. Okay, so now that I have everything in place, I'm going to be mirroring it to the other side. So I can turn the ortho back on, go to mirror, select a base point to mirror. When I get the preview I like, click, erase source, no. And I've got it. So this line here, I can erase. I can erase this line as well. I'm going to be trimming these lines back. I'm going to be trimming I'm also going to be erasing this line and then trimming these hidden lines away that are sitting in dead air. It shouldn't be here. Erase this line and trim here and here. Okay, one last thing I need to do, and I mentioned this already, curves and arcs don't project from one view to the other, but we do have to project where they begin and where they end, because this comes up to a hard stop right here where this angled line meets this horizontal line. We'll just take a line and draw it down, and I'm going to be putting perpendicular snap on again, clicking here, doing the same thing here. and here. And here. Oh, and look, I forgot to do this. I forgot to trim the hidden line here. I forgot to pick a boundary. Okay. And then, lastly, we're going to trim these lines away. Okay, and what we have here is object lines that are visible, that when I look at this from the side view, they represent where these curves and arcs begin and end, or where their endpoints come to a hard meeting here, like these 2 points, these 2 points, and these 2 points. And there I have it. So I should be able to run a line up and down and be able to test where all these features meet one another between views. It was a bit of a lengthy video. This isn't the only example we'll look at. We'll do a 2 or 3 more examples before we finish off the lessons for the CO2 car design work. But that's not a bad looking design for a first go. And as you know, these things take time, but watch for the next video and we'll do a different example with different wheel styles. See you later and talk to you next time.